Hey everyone, I've got a wild wedding story for you today. The first one is about a bridesmaid who completely destroyed a 12-year friendship because of a speech. Honestly, if I hadn't been there myself, I'd think this was something out of a comedy movie. It was awkward, cringy, hilarious, and sad all rolled into one. So, one of my close friends was marrying the love of her life. In her bridal party, she included another friend of ours, someone she'd been best friends with for over a decade. I've known them both for years since we're all in the same circle, so I've seen their friendship up close. Now, this particular bridesmaid has always been, let's say, in her own little bubble. She's 32, still living with her parents, and they cover all her bills. When she wanted to live with her boyfriend, she convinced her parents to buy her a condo while they continued paying for her to stay in the family house. She's also been dragging out a 2-year degree for 7 years now, constantly whining about bad group partners. But honestly, the common denominator is her. Everyone in our group knows she's difficult to be around. Anyway, back to the wedding. You could feel the tension building before the big day. At one point, I walked in on her yelling and crying at the bride, claiming she was just trying to do something nice. It was so messy that I turned right back around. The bride didn't want to talk about it then, but after the reception disaster, she finally spilled everything. One of the major issues came from the makeup arrangements. The bridesmaid recommended a makeup artist, so the bride hired that artist plus an assistant. The plan was for the artist to handle the bride, her mom, and the maid of honor, while the assistant did the 3 bridesmaids. Simple, right? Not for this bridesmaid. She lost it when she heard the assistant would be doing her makeup. She demanded the main artist do hers, and even insisted she should be first in line. The bride calmly explained that her priority was her own look, her mom, and her maid of honor, and told her point blank, "This day is about me. Every other day of our friendship has always been about you. Please, just let this one be about me." Of course, the message didn't sink in. Then came the dreaded speech. The groom had warned the bride to just tell her no. But the bride caved, because with this friend, saying no was impossible. Big mistake. The speech started with her bragging about their 12 years of friendship, but then immediately undercut it by saying it would have been longer if the bride hadn't been mean, and mocked her back in the day. Everyone just stared at each other like, did she really just say that? She followed up with some random story about asking the bride if her pants made her look fat, and the bride said yes. To her, that honesty meant they had to be friends. Basically, she painted the bride as rude and herself as some kind of victim. It only went downhill from there. The rest of her speech was about her own relationship. The 2 times her boyfriend almost broke up with her, how hard it was, and absolutely nothing about the bride. Her poor boyfriend was sitting there turning red while the whole room shifted uncomfortably. Spoiler. They're still together and even got married later. She eventually wrapped it up with a generic best wishes, but never once turned the spotlight back onto the actual couple. Our entire table was silently begging her to stop, mouthing sit down, as discreetly as possible. It was painful, but also one of those train wreck you can't look away from situations. The next day, the friendship ended. Not because the bride was devastated, but because the bridesmaid was furious that the bride didn't appreciate the speech. She genuinely believed it was heartfelt and thoughtful. When the bride told her the truth, that it was self-centered, rude, and in terrible taste, she couldn't handle the honesty she supposedly valued so much. And just like that, 12 years of friendship ended. The whole thing honestly reminded me of that Black Mirror episode where a frenemy goes to a wedding and everything spirals because of social scores and fake smiles. Same kind of energy, except this was real life, no filters required. She really does sound like a total disaster of a person. Honestly, I can't even picture what it would be like to maintain a friendship with someone like that. Hopefully nobody else ever has to sit through such a cringe-worthy speech at their own wedding, because that's the kind of moment that sticks with you forever for all the wrong reasons. Now the next story I came across is a bit of a roller coaster. And there's even an update at the end, so definitely hang around for that. Let's get into it. A user online asked if they were in the wrong for being upset about their engagement ring, which cost only $150. So here's the situation. Her fiancé is financially comfortable, far from struggling, and although she doesn't make as much money as he does, she's well off enough that she wouldn't be struggling on her own either. He rotates between a collection of pricey watches, the kind people definitely notice, and while they're both careful with money, they don't shy away from spending when it comes to things that matter. They've got a good system with their finances, and since they share accounts, she knows without a doubt that he isn't hiding debt or being secretive about money. The ring itself, she admits, is simple and understated. But instead of looking like a proper engagement ring, it resembles more of a small, stackable ring you'd wear alongside others. The stone doesn't even look like a diamond to her, and it's very small. It's not a family heirloom or anything sentimental either. She couldn't help noticing how awkward things got when she showed it off. Her friends and family faked their excitement for a second, then quickly changed the subject. She doesn't blame them since they're not exactly good liars, but it stung all the same. She wants to be clear that she's not expecting him to blow 3 months' salary on a flashy ring. Nor does she want some extravagant wedding. What matters to her is that this is a piece she's expected to wear every single day for decades, and culturally, it's seen as a symbol of love and commitment. To her, it should feel like something lasting, something meaningful, an investment in both quality and sentiment. She couldn't help comparing the price of the ring to something like a gaming console, and in her eyes, it was frustrating to think that her fiancé seemed willing to invest more in a hobby than in a lifelong symbol of their relationship. She added some clarifications afterward, since people kept asking the same questions. They had talked a little about the general style she liked, and he even had access to her jewelry box to get an idea of her taste. Since price wasn't the focus for her, they never had a conversation about a budget for the ring, which in hindsight she now realizes was a mistake. Her stance isn't that she wanted him to spend a fortune. It wouldn't matter if it was $1,000 or $100,000. What mattered was that it felt like a piece of quality craftsmanship. To her, this ring just looks cheap, and the underwhelming reaction from everyone else was only part of why she felt so disappointed. The real issue for her was what the ring represented. For someone who is financially well off, who has bought her much more expensive jewelry before, and who knows the type of pieces she wears daily, choosing such a low-cost ring for something so important felt out of character, and almost careless. She never imagined she'd need to spell out to him that an engagement ring should carry more weight and significance. If they were struggling financially, or if $150 had been a big sacrifice for him, she says she would have been ecstatic and proudly shown it off. But that's not their situation at all. He's surprised her in the past with diamond earrings, luxury trips, and thoughtful gifts, so money isn't the problem here. That's why this felt like such a shock. Because the price wasn't what upset her most. It was what the choice seemed to say about his perspective on the meaning of their engagement. That to be completely honest, the ring looks and feels cheap, both in style and cost. Yes, I can imagine he may have spent time picking out something from a small, independent jeweler, but the ring he chose is nothing like anything I've ever shown interest in or talked about. It's also in a much lower price range than what we would normally spend on regular accessories, which makes me doubt the effort put into it. For me, though, this isn't just about not getting the exact design I had hoped for. What really bothers me is the idea that some people assume being disappointed with the ring means I'm unhappy with the proposal itself. That's not true at all. I've never once said I regret getting engaged, or that I don't want to marry him. Life isn't black and white. I can be completely in love with him and excited about our future together while still being underwhelmed by the ring. I knew it was a sensitive topic, so I wanted to get an outside perspective before bringing it up with him. Tonight, I decided it was time to have that conversation. When he got home, we had dinner, and I gently started with, "Honey, I'd like to talk about the ring." But before I could even finish the thought, he exploded. He started shouting, saying I had ruined everything by waiting too long to bring this up. Then the truth came out. He admitted he had deliberately bought the ring from a jeweler with bad reviews. His plan was that when I inevitably complained about it, he could dump me and paint me as a gold digger. On top of that, he confessed he'd been having an affair. I had believed his work hours had been extended because of the pandemic, but in reality, they had been shortened, giving him more time to spend with someone younger. He said breaking up with me directly would make him look bad since everyone liked me, so he needed to twist the situation so I would look like the villain. Listening to him, I realized a lot of the phrases he used didn't sound like his own words. They were almost certainly influenced by a particular co-worker of his, someone I've clashed with before and who I suspect has had far too much sway over him. All the changes I had attributed to stress at work suddenly made sense in a much darker way. I felt embarrassed that I didn't catch on sooner, or wasn't able to stop things from spiraling this far. That said, I don't plan on sticking around to uncover more. I know my ex wouldn't have behaved this way without outside pressure, but that doesn't absolve him. It only shows me how weak and easily manipulated he really is. I don't intend to reach out to many of our mutual friends as this all unfolds. It's just not worth it. While he was still in the middle of his rant, I walked out after about 15 minutes and went to stay with my mom. I haven't cried yet, and maybe I'm still waiting for reality to fully hit. It may never make sense, logically, but I know the tears will come eventually. For now, I'm distracting myself online until I'm ready to face it emotionally. If there's any silver lining in all this, it's that I don't have to wear that ugly ring anymore. Honestly, I wasn't expecting things to end this way when I first started questioning it. I can't believe he went to such lengths, pretending to commit to a future together, only to use the engagement as a weapon to protect his own reputation. In my view, what he did was cruel and manipulative, especially since he was cheating all along while plotting to cast me in the worst possible light. I hope I can eventually share the truth with others, but even more importantly, I need to hold on to it for myself so I can fully move on. Whether or not anyone believes I was right to be upset about the ring, I know no one deserves to be treated that way. If he wanted to leave, he should have done it honestly instead of setting me up for humiliation.